Hey everybody, I just wanted to hop on here and I wanted to do a quick mini lesson on place value. I noticed that we struggle to read some really big numbers. So I'm going to just quickly do a mini lesson on how to go about reading big numbers. So I have a place value chart here. Okay, so of course the first number on the right side is your ones, tens, hundreds. Then you have your comma that goes right here, comma. Then you got thousands, 10,000s, 100,000s, then comma. Then you've got your millions. You have your 1 millions, your 10 millions, and your 100 millions. Now, if you get all the way up to 3 commas, then you're in your billions. So 3 commas equals billions, 2 commas equals millions, and 1 comma equals thousands. So what I'm going to do is first, but without the chart, I'm going to write some numbers, and I want you to try to read that number out loud. Okay? So here's my first number. So here's the number. Okay, so the first thing you want to do when you look at this number is notice that there is only 1 comma. And you have to identify what place value is the biggest number in. Well, my 4 is my largest number. It's worth the most because it's worth 40,000. Okay? It's in the 10,000s place value. So I know that I would read this as, remember we read this as an entire entity, an entire number before we get to the comma. We'd read this as 45. When you get to the comma, you know you say 1,000. Now we read this as a total number, 879. Okay, so if you said that this number was 45,879, pat on the back. Good job. Okay, we're going to do another one. We're actually going to do a couple. Let's get a little bit bigger. Now this time, instead of typing something in the 10,000s, I type something in the 100,000s. So remember, when we see a big word, we have to identify how many commas are there. There's 1 comma. And we read numbers in sections. Okay, so before the comma, we would read this as its number. So don't even worry about the rest of the numbers. We'd read this as, well, this is 134. Remember, we don't say 134. We leave out our and. You would say 134. Now, when you get to the comma, you know to say 1,000 because there's just 1. So you should read it as 134,000. Now we read this next number completely separate. 765. So all together, let's put it all together, 134,765. If you got that right, pat on the back. Good job. All right, we're going up even more. I was in the 100,000s. Now what's after the 100,000s? The millions. That means there's going to be 2 commas. So let's do this. Okay, so I see there's 2 commas. I'm going to circle those. When I see 2 commas, I know it's millions. Okay, so I know that's my first number. Remember, we read each number separate. So obviously, you would read 5. Then you get to your comma, just like when we read left to right. So you'd say 5 million. Now we read this as a separate number. 789,000. Now we read this as a separate number. 235. So let's do it again. Let's put it all together. 5,789,235. If you read that correctly, pat on the back. We're going up even more, folks. We just did millions. Now what comes next on the place value chart? 10 millions. Let's do this. Okay, now we're in the 10 millions. See, there's 2 commas, so I know that's my first one is the millions. My second one is the thousands. All right, remember we read each separate number, so this would be 65. Then we get to the comma and we say million. 892,000. 345. Okay, so let's do it all together. 65,892,345. If you read that correctly, pat on the back. Ooh, we got a couple more to go. Our numbers just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now we're up to we just did 10 millions. Next is the 100 millions. Whoop. All right, that's a big number right there. Okay, identify your commas. There's 2, so we know it's in the millions. Okay, we read each number separately. So we have 678. Read to the comma and we say million. 452. Got to the comma. 1,199. So let's put it all together. 678,452,199. If you said that correctly, pat on the back. We're going up one more. We just did 100 million. We started at 10,000, did 100,000, then millions, then 10 millions, then 100 millions. Now we're getting into the billions. You're right. Let's see if we can read a number in the billion spot. Here we go. Wow, that's a huge number. But we know our system, so this shouldn't be too hard for us. First, we identify our commas. There are 3 commas. Whoosh! That's a big number. Circle your commas. All right, now we read each number separately. So we know we read this as 8,654,234,459. Wow, you should be really proud of yourself. Let's put that all together. 8,654,234,459. That's a big number. Let's look back at our chart. We're going to try to do an example on our chart this time to help us out if you need a little extra assistance. This goes up to the 100 billions, but we're just going to go up to the 100 millions. Whoop. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and put my comma. Okay, so here's our number. We identify our commas. I think blue will show up better. I'm going to do blue. We have 2 commas. We know that's in the millions. When you have 2 commas, it's the millions. So remember, we read this in each chunk. So this is 451,468,111. That's your number. Last example using the chart. I need my pointer. Okay, let's do one in the billions. I need to go up one more space. 1, comma. Okay, here we go. We see 3 commas. 1, 2, 3. We know that that indicates that this number is in the billions. So let's read it. 1,434,669,441. Wow. But did you know that there are numbers that go past the ones? So we have the ones right here. There's numbers even farther over to the right. Those are called decimals. Okay, and I'm going to teach you that really quickly. This isn't a third grade standard. To be able to read these numbers is something you want to be able to do in third grade, but I want to introduce you to decimals. That's something you're going to learn next year and even the next year. So here's the entire chart that I got off of Google, okay? You'll see decimals and there's this big black dot. Now on your STAR test, you've probably seen some questions about decimals and fractions. We'll get into fractions actually probably around April or May, but we are going to just quickly talk about decimals as a mini lesson. I only want you to know up to this. Okay, so I'm going to cover this up. If you can just know that the number right after the period to the right, it's in the tenths spot with the TH at the end. So say it with me, tenths, tenths. The next spot is the hundredths. And the next is the thousandths. Now there's no once, okay? There's just tenths. It starts in the tenths. Because if something's 0.2, it actually represents 20%, okay? So for example, if you see let me move this. If a question ever asks you, what does this number represent? This is 0.25, so the 2 is in the tenths and the 5 is in the hundredths. Technically, zeros go on forever and ever and ever, so I could technically fill every single block with zeros, and it would still be the same number. Whoop. Make my text box a little bigger. So it doesn't matter if there's a million zeros or no zeros. There can be zeros that keep going. 0.25 is the same thing as 1/4. It's the same thing as 25% of something. So a lot of times with decimals, that's how you get into percentages. I just wanted to make you aware of these 3 decimal places because so many of you guys got asked this question and I was like, that's not even a third grade question, but that's okay. Okay, so we just read big numbers, but I want to make you aware that there are numbers that go on the right side of big numbers, any number, and it's point, and it has the tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. And you're going to work with decimals. You'll be able to divide them. You'll be able to multiply them. You do all kinds of things with decimals in the 5th grade. So if you can remember tenths, hundredths, thousandths, you'll be ahead of the game. All right, I had really a lot of fun with you guys reviewing place value. I hope that you guys have a wonderful afternoon. See ya.